JJ, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into art, and kind of how that turned into a ministry for you?
Well, for me, um, one thing about as far as our ministry, this is the way that I praised God when I was younger. I was born nonverbal, and my parents couldn't figure out why I wasn't talking. And so when most kids were going to kindergarten, we were going to the doctor trying to figure out, what was wrong. And so the doctor came in, and I remember things the doctor would say, even though the doctors, they kind of acted like um, I wasn't even there. And so the first time that I was diagnosed, the doctor came in the room, and he told my father, he said, Mr. Cox, first, your son has severe ADHD, which, when we travel, I tell kids that's my superpower. I can do 8 things at once. Some days I can't do one thing, but I can bug my wife. It works out. And he followed it up by your son has autism, and there's programs for him. He's going to be in this program the rest of his life. And then he said he'll be lucky if he can tie his shoes. And I never forgot it because he came over and put his arm around me and looked at my dad and said, "It's like this. All the lights are on, but nobody's home." And I remember, I remember just my mom and dad really being upset. I was a kid, but I remember my dad on the way home. He turned around and he looked at me and he said, "We know what the doctor said." He said, "Look at me. I know you understand me." And he said, "We know what the doctor said, but we're going to see what God says because our God is bigger than any diagnosis and he has the final say." And so from that moment, I went into a special program in my local school, and it was special ed. And I had some teachers that were just amazing, and I would sit and draw and color all day long. And the teachers began to see, they said that I was talking, just not with my voice, but through art. And they began to get me some art supplies, and they really pushed art for me. And I began to have a voice with art when I didn't have a voice. And so that was kind of my life for a long time. The teachers would argue with my doctors, and the doctors would say he's never going to do this, never going to do that. And the teachers would say, "Look at his artwork. He's smart. He's talking if you listen." And so basically, what happened was this went on for a long time, and I just fell in love with art. And you know, the more art I did, then I found music, and I began to play musical instruments. And for my dad's church, my dad pastored for 41 years. And so my dad told the doctors that you are wrong, that God is doing something in his life, and he's going to play any instrument in the church. And he began to put instruments in my hand, and he would put a guitar in my hand and make chords over my hand, and I would begin to remember them. And they were telling my mom and dad that I'd be lucky if I could tie my shoes. And I was learning guitar, piano, bass, but not talking. And so it God just really did a move. And I just remember the doctor saying, "Well, God is doing all these things, but your son is still not talking." And I was 8 years old, and my dad was tuning my guitar. And I looked at him, and my first words were, "You're out of tune. You're out of tune." And he started crying, and they put me in speech therapy. And I began to get letters home from the program. JJ's an excellent young man. He talks too much. And so everything just changed. And, the teacher said he doesn't need to be in this program. And my dad said, well, why is he in this program? And the doctor said his test said. And I remember going in, and they tested me for everything to see where you are on the spectrum. They tested me, my IQ. And I remember the doctor coming into the room, and he looked at my dad and he said, Mr. Cox, we don't understand. And my dad, he said, me and his mother, we understand, because our God is still bigger than any diagnosis. And he told my family, we've ran the test and ran the test. Your son don't have autism. And he said, it doesn't make any sense. Um, but he doesn't have autism. And he's on his IQ. They said I was above normal, which I don't know if that's true. I still doubt it sometimes. But my dad said, well, we're going to put him in school. And at the time, I knew where I was at, but I didn't know really what to expect. And I called it normal school. I said, I get to go to normal school with the art program. And I was excited because, I wanted to go for the art. And so I went into sixth grade, and the same doctor said, it's a bad idea. Um, you know, he probably won't graduate. He'll be lucky if he can tie his shoes. Um, Seventh grade, doctor said the same thing. Eighth grade, the doctor said the same thing, and my dad said, you're fired. And we got a new doctor. And at my graduation, you know, when I graduated, I invited my old doctor and to my graduation. And I didn't think he would come, but he did. And so one thing about me, I'm kind of like Chris there. I'm a little I'm gonna say mischievous.
Oh boy.
I like to have fun. Um, so I invited him, and I walked the stage with my diploma, and I walked past my mom and dad, and I walked up to my doctor, and I told him, my old doctor, and I said, "Sir, I graduated." And he said, I'm proud of you.